Quick Q&A. I went ahead and asked people on Twitter if they had any questions about me. Obviously, we've reached 1 million subscribers over the course of 4 years, and it's been a little over a year and 700,000 subscribers since we did our last Q&A, so I thought I'd give it another shot and see if there's anything else people were interested in find out. The first question is from Flowraider. It said, what job did you have before becoming a streamer slash YouTuber? And this one's a little bit of a weird one because technically I was retired for a whole year before I started YouTube. A lot of people don't necessarily know this, but if you watch the first Q&A, you kind of have a little bit more details. But essentially, my wife went to work one day. She worked for the San Bernardino County, got killed along with 13 other people in a terrorist shooting that also injured 22 other people. And as a result of that, because I had life insurance as well as she worked for the county, I got a retirement before that. But prior to that, I used to work in sales. So there was a transition where I was working in sales. That all happened. And then I became a single parent with my 23-month-old and essentially took a year off. Didn't really do anything. I was essentially retired, was debating on going back to school, started taking a couple classes here or there to get my degree in mathematics so I can go into teaching at the high school level. And because I started YouTube as a hobby, I kind of was just like, oh, I'm kind of bored. I have that type A personality where I like to stay busy, especially coming from the sales background. I got bored after a year of going to Disneyland, watching Netflix, taking my son to the park, whatever. Life, it just kind of gets boring sometimes. You got to stay busy and work and enjoy what you do. And then as a result of that, I was essentially retired and I started YouTube as a hobby and it started to pick up. And that's pretty much that part of it. Obviously, it could be a little bit longer, but that is the general gist of what happened. Next one is from J-Rock. It said, how did you accomplish your rapid and amazing success? Advice for other content creators would be so appreciated. Thank you, legend. Appreciate the support on that. I'm just a regular dude, though. I kind of got lucky, but I also really did a lot of work in trying to understand YouTube. I think that's one thing that goes a little bit under the radar is a lot of the successful YouTubers. Obviously, there's a lot of people who work hard, but there's people who also work smart. And then there's also people that are willing to experiment. I think that's one thing that separated me. I had a lot of free time. Like I said, I was retired. So essentially I was able to focus a lot of time on watching YouTube, trying to understand the algorithm. And at that time, I got a little bit better at COD where I was dropping nukes and being very comfortable. And I thought, you know what? I think I could provide tips in a different way. And I wasn't scared to experiment. Even in the beginning, I think a lot of people get pigeonholed, especially with COD, where it's like this best class setup, this best class setup. They don't do top 10 videos. They don't do any tip videos. They don't do any movement guides. They don't do any breakdowns of mechanics. They very limit themselves. And I think that's probably the advice I would give is try to understand the algorithm. Just Google it, YouTube it. Hey, how do you grow on YouTube? How do you make a thumbnail? And you start from scratch, because prior to that, I had never watched YouTube before 2017. That was the first year I started watching, and coincidentally also the year I started my YouTube channel. So I was well behind the curve, but I caught up really quick. So I'd recommend trying to do research to learn if you're looking to grow on YouTube. The next one's from Brandon. A little bit funny. It says, if you weren't a pro gamer, what would you be doing? My long shot guess, you'd be an analytics guy for pro sports team. And thanks for giving me credit as a pro gamer. I'm an above average player. I play a decent amount of time, probably at a casual level and like a couple hours a day, if that. But appreciate that. I think I would either be teaching at a high school level or I'd be doing nothing because essentially I'm retired. And any income I get beyond my retirement is just extra. I could pay all my bills with retirement. I only primarily do YouTube at this point because I do enjoy it. I have made a lot of connections, which allow me to interact with more people on a greater basis. But overall, I would probably just be gaming, just not uploading it if I wasn't doing YouTube at this current moment. Next one is from Gabo. It says, your relationship with Mexico and how often do you come here? In case a lot of people do not know this, I'm actually half Mexican. My dad was 100% Mexican. My mom is 100% white, whatever ethnicity, I don't know. Just simple Mexican and white. So sometimes when I talk, people will ask in the comment section, like, are you Spanish to some? Because you kind of have an accent. Certain words, I will have an accent. My dad was born in Mexico. He came to the United States, and then he ended up getting deported about 20 years ago. And then this past year over the holidays, like I said, he had a stroke a week before Christmas and ended up dying on Christmas. And then we had the funeral this past week. So that was all kind of what has happened with that. So that was my relationship with Mexico. We would go visit my dad a couple times a year. And because that's kind of where he was, that's where he had to live because he was deported. So we would travel there, and I've gone to deep Mexico, which my family's from Yucatan. So we would go visit there. I've gone there once, gone to the different sinkholes, gone to Chichen Itza and traveled and visited that, probably like a good 5 years ago. So next one's from HX2, a little bit longer. Been waiting for this since you got to 1 million subs. Are you proud of yourself with how well the COD community appreciates everything you've done for it over the last couple years? Did you ever see yourself going this far, co-hosting on Twitch with the Wonderland event, etc., etc.? Personally, I am proud of what I accomplished. I kind of set out a plan of what I want to accomplish. It ended up happening probably about a year and a half faster than I thought and wrote out and planned, because I strategized how fast I wanted to get to 100K. I hit that relatively quickly before Modern Warfare ever dropped. That's kind of right when I hit 100K. And then Warzone was the accelerant that even pushed that further. I thought it would take me an extra year, maybe two, to get to 1 million subscribers. Warzone definitely helped with that. The second integration being completely broken definitely helped with that, especially since I was one of the few stat guys that was actually uploading Warzone and doing the stats for that stuff. So I appreciate all that. I think people give me way more credit than I should have, because obviously I do work, but it ended up being much bigger than it was because there's a lot of people that do test stuff now, and there's a lot of people that are helping the community, and I give a lot of credit. Obviously, True Game Data is kind of like that next dude that tests everything, is running his site, and I've recommended him from day one, and I recommend his content always because I've met him in person. I think he's a great dude, and that's a whole other thing there. Did I ever think I was gonna get this far in terms of doing all that stuff? No. I never envisioned I would be doing casting, analytic, breakdowns. I never envisioned any of that stuff, and it opened up a ton of different opportunities that I never expected with different sponsors, whether it's my Gamer Advantage for the glasses or my Gfuel, which is actually currently discounted right now for 30% off until the 17th. A little plug there, side note. But I never thought I would be doing all that. I thought, hey, when I upload YouTube videos as a hobby, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you get to a certain point, you're quote unquote clouded, which does sometimes bring negative attention along with that positive, because you're always going to have certain people that just hate you because you breathe. And that's okay. Once you realize that there are those types of people out there, they live to hate every day. That's okay. You move on. You just kind of ignore it and you move on. So I never expected the positive or the negative to get to that point. Kind of just did it as a hobby, and we are here today. And I'm very appreciative of my community because they're very, very supportive in so many ways. And I definitely notice that on a daily basis. Next one's pretty straightforward from JB. It says, do you get recognized in public often? I will say 100% no. I think part of that has to do with COVID, because obviously you wear a face mask, you're much less likely to get recognized. Also, I live kind of in what we'd call a senior community, where it's mostly older and retired people that are not necessarily probably into gaming. So the likelihood of them knowing who I am, very low. Maybe if they were out to their kids or their grandkids, maybe they know, hey, Call of Duty, that's JGOD. Besides that, no shot that happens. The only 2 times I've ever been recognized in public outside of maybe going to an event is one time when I went to a Korean barbecue place. Some guy was talking about me at another table. He goes, I think that's JGOD. Yeah. And he pulled out his phone. He's telling his friends, yeah, that's him. But he never said anything, and he was just whispering, but it was loud enough for me to hear. That was one time. And then one time when I went through airport, TSA was asking about my mask because I have an LA Gorillas mask that they gave us when we went to an event. And I like the mask because it's comfortable. And he goes, hey, nice little character on there. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's a Call of Duty thing. And then just from my voice, the guy goes, oh, is that JGOD? You're JGOD, right? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I was watching your video yesterday or this morning or whatever. And that's the only 2 times I've ever been recognized other than going to an event. And obviously, people are like, oh, I expect to see content creators there. So no, it doesn't happen very often at all. Next one is from Bradley Mills. Can you see yourself playing Warzone in the next 3 months? 100% yes. I don't see myself never not playing Warzone, especially with the plans that they have going forward and the way they're going to continue to build the product. The biggest problem for me currently is I cannot enjoy Caldera, but That's not because of the actual map. It's really just because of the changes to the rules, the vehicles. I'm liking the other supplemental things they changed, the cost of things, the loadout delay, all these other stuff, planes, all that stuff, I do not like. I would want to play with the exact rules we had the last day of Verdansk on Caldera and see how that feels. I think based off of that, then I can make an assessment and really judge it. If we go back to the first 3 to 6 months of Verdansk, even though it was a very fun and new game, the biggest problem it had was the map was nowhere near as polished as it was towards the end of the life cycle. We opened up Stadium, added tons of different POIs, modified the map. It got a little bit of a facelift with the 80s theme or whatever, which most people laughed at. They added the train. They added a lot of these other dynamics. They added tons of contract. At the launch of Verdansk, it was missing a lot and it was very much lacking. If you went back and played the day one Verdansk, it didn't have satchels. I don't know if you remember that. So I think some people got to, separate the rules from the map, because I think the map as a whole is good. I think they're going to make a lot of changes to it over the current year, just like they did in year 2 and year 1, to a point where they're going to adapt to what their metrics say people are enjoying. So yes, 3 months, yes. But besides that, I've been playing a lot of Rebirth because they have the normal rules. If Caldera has normal rules, I play Caldera. But it is what it is. So next one's from Carnage Hero. This one actually piggybacks on the last one. It says, Verdansk or Caldera, what have you liked more between the two maps so far? What do you think would be make Caldera better? Obviously a weird thing answering it, considering it's only been out a couple months, haha, but still. Yeah, so this kind of was going back to what I was saying. If we go back to the first couple months of Verdansk and the first months of Caldera, if you aren't looking at it back with nostalgia, there's so much stuff that kind of sucked in the early days of Warzone, with certain different bugs and all kinds of other stuff. Then towards the end of that life cycle, it was running smooth. Then they had the Cold War integration, which had a bumpy start, but then it started cruising along pretty smoothly. And I think a lot of people were really enjoying the map and the congestion of the POIs. Remember next to Super? Open field, nothing. Then they added a whole new section. I think they're going to do the same thing, because around peak, there's peak, and then everything on the outside, there is room for them to grow and develop. And I think by the time it gets there, it'll be a good map, but it needs to get there, because right now, those are kind of dead areas of the map. Most of the POIs are on the outside, which is kind of unfortunate. Next one's from Christopher, or Poor Chris. It says, when you do anything enough, it can be monotonous or lose its luster. What should get you most excited about gaming, making content, and what are you most looking forward to? Also, what would be your dream combo COD be, i.e. TTK of MW plus AW movement? You have your favorite game modes, maps. Cool, so there's 2 different questions we'll break down. First one is, I think that I'm trying to evolve my way of thinking about content. Obviously, I had a lot going on in the past month. The anniversary of my wife's thing, where we had to attend something. We can see the memorial early. And then my dad had a stroke. I had the Wonderland event where I had to travel for. And then we had holidays and New Year's. And then my dad died. And then we had a funeral. So I've been pretty busy. So that's why there's been gaps in uploads. I haven't necessarily been home every single day to work. But in terms of keeping focused and motivated, I'm trying to kind of evolve my way of thinking about content. You might not necessarily see it on the introductory level. Some of you have already made comments in certain videos on changes I've made, but I'm going much deeper and further, because when I've gone and met with different content creators that are much larger than myself, get to pick their brain, talk about their thought process, it allows me to kind of expand and think of different ways I can improve my content to make it better. So in the next year from now, you guys are going to see a lot that is changing, and it should mostly be for the better, which is always going to be one of those things that I'm striving for, in addition to modifying and expanding the content to some other things, maybe even involving my son in some other content that I have planned, and some IRL stuff and vlog stuff, in addition to the content we're already having, because I do have a decent amount of downtime when I budget my time wisely, that I can make things happen. That's what gets me excited. There's so much you can make. If I was just one of those dudes making best PPSH class setup 7 days in a row, I would probably be bored and it would get a little bit monotonous and you'd feel like you were really grinding. Me, I have about 7 different types of videos I can make, even though I know a lot of people like spectating randos, best loadout, top 10 loadout. I know people like those, but there's a lot of stuff that I know I can make and people will like. For the second question, it says, what would be your dream COD? I think if they had advanced movement, personally, I'm a fan of advanced movement because I'm for anything that creates a skill gap. I know that goes against the casuals and it's like, okay, I'd have a dead game, but at least the game would be fun. I think anything with advanced movement, either a combination of BO3 or IW, which both had nice TTKs, very fun to play. Because of the outplay potential. If somebody's camping, you just fly in over their head, you shoot them, and the head glitch is eliminated. So I think that was a cool part. A lot of you guys never even played those, so you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but it was a huge thing, especially when you got good. You could tell that you were good because you would dominate the lobbies. And then when it comes to TTK, I think BO4 had a really solid TTK. I know it was a little bit on the slower end. People felt a little bit spongy, but overall that allows for a ton of outplay potential because you can actually get in and out gunfights. If somebody's in a corner, maybe you could react and then maybe do a drop shot or slide, or with the jetpack, you could fly up over their head, react, and then have some mobility to it. Obviously, those aren't necessarily COD, but those are hella fun to play, and I can dump tons of hours in those because there's a huge gap to improve other than ADS and shoot and people die in 3 bullets. That isn't necessarily as fun to me. Kind of like remedial, boring at times, just because all you do is just kind of walk. You don't even have to sprint and you'll do perfectly fine. And that kind of caters to a low skill player, which I know most people that play COD aren't all that great. That doesn't include all you guys because you guys watch YouTube. You guys should be better than the casual or the average, but in general, you know what I mean. Most of the other questions fell in line with these things. I do appreciate all the support over the year. Obviously, we've hit 1 million subscribers. I think for the year, we can definitely hit 1.52 million if the content keeps coming on Warzone, as well as me getting all my other socials caught up, because I do have a content manager I'm bringing on to kind of help out with that stuff as well. So you guys will be getting more content and varied content, but better content as well, hopefully. So appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.